All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of DP Uncensored. Devin Postlesny here from DP Production Group, or DP Production Group, producing and distributing, or being one of the key distributors in this podcast. Obviously, YouTube and Apple Podcasts are the two places you're listening to it right now. We are working on getting the podcast out to more platforms. I'm not sure who yet. There was somebody told me once that Spotify had a podcast section, so maybe we'll get it onto Spotify. Who knows? But at this moment, YouTube and Apple Podcasts are your two places to go for this podcast. So I once again am joining you through the airwaves, through wherever you're listening to, while on the road. Which it's actually funny because this is now the second episode where we're recording this while I'm driving somewhere. And I want to point it out that, before I go any further, that the recorder that we're using is sitting on the passenger seat. I have one of my broadcast headsets on, and it's on my head. My hands are both on the wheel or on the shifter, depending on which vehicle I'm in. And I am fully aware of my surroundings, don't worry. So I'm not distracted driving. I don't want anyone out there to be thinking, oh my gosh, he's recording a podcast while driving. That's so dangerous. He's holding the microphone with one hand. That's not true at all. The headsets that we used for broadcasting games, you guys have most likely seen it. It's a two cup headphone type headset with a microphone boom that is completely hands-free. Best thing that we ever purchased were these headsets. But that's another discussion for another day. But yeah, so I just wanted to put that out there before we go any further. Don't worry, I'm not on my phone checking stats. I'm not holding a recorder to my chest, making sure you can hear me. Completely hands-free situation. I will say that we have gotten some weird looks while driving through downtown Tilton or something, where people are looking at me and I just look and I'm talking to myself with a broadcaster headset on. They're just looking what the heck is he doing? But, I give him a smile and a wave, and we move on. But, yeah, so I just wanted to get that out there. Funny thing about the recording second time on the road was a year and a half ago. This is a quick side story before we get to what we're talking about today. But a year and a half ago or so, there was an idea for this podcast. This podcast has since evolved into the one you're listening to now. But the idea was a weekly or even more frequently type podcast that was just me and my thoughts when driving on the road. Because there was a point in the summer, or actually in 2020, once kind of the initial lockdown of COVID went away, where I was on the road constantly, driving to racetracks, driving to soccer games, driving to hockey games, driving to whatever sporting event we needed. 2020 was a very big year for DP Production Group, so I was on the road constantly. So and of course, I didn't bring anybody with me in the car because of the whole COVID concern. And, if we're in the same car for 4 hours, does that mean we have to wear a mask in the car for 4 hours? Things like that. There was no vaccine yet or anything like that. So a lot of the times it was just me jamming out to music. So the idea came up where, hey, what if we had a podcast where it was just me driving, or me talking for an hour or so while driving, and it would be called On the Road with Devin or something like that. I think it was actually On the Road with DP. Unfortunately, what didn't allow us to do that is we didn't have the recorder we needed. And in order to record at the time, it was going to use a camera, and there was a whole other slew of potential problems involved in that. So that idea kind of got put on the back burner. And then this past Christmas, I think it was, I got this audio recorder. And it's a great thing. It's a Zoom audio recorder. Like I said, I think in the last episode, we can use it to get audio bites while at games and things like that. So finally got around to testing it, finally got around to playing with it and figuring out how exactly it works. And here we are now. So, but of course, the unfortunate issue is that I'm not on the road as often as I used to be, or I am. I'm constantly driving, but most of the times it's 10 minutes down the road to, Guilford High School, or here I'm going to take a quick trip to Belmont, which is 5 minutes away from my home, So there's not really many extended periods of time I'm on the road now, but today's one of them, and headsets on, and here we go. So before I get to where my conversation, the topic for this week, I'm headed to Middlebury, Vermont. Yeah, and we're recording this on Tuesday, February 22nd. So for those of you who know how today's gone, we were talking earlier today at Guilford High School's gym when Guilford High School, during their winter carnival, we are live streaming all their events this week. So yes, picture that. Hey, I was talking to you this morning, and now you're going to be in a different state later, not even 6 hours later. So I don't know if that's cool for anybody else, but it'd be cool for me. Anyways, so what is the topic for this week? I know the last episode we kind of talked about how we were going to open it up to the fans. And one of the ideas I had was, saying, hey, what do you guys want the topic to be? And you guys vote. Well, I didn't do that because I had a more pressing topic, in my opinion, on my mind that I am, one, easily fired up about, in a good way, not like I'm going to start swearing or anything. But two, it's pretty relevant in this day and age. It's pretty present. It's pretty modern, current news. And that is, how do I put it? I guess I would say it's the topic of everybody, and this, I don't know how exactly to put it, but I guess here's the uncensored part. Everybody getting an award, everyone getting a trophy, and that what's involved in that. I will say before I go any further, there will be no direct examples or no direct names or situations used in this conversation that we're going to have, because I'm a very general person. I'm never going to drag somebody down. Same thing I said about last week with keyboard warriors. You're never going to hear me call somebody out on a podcast, unless they call me out first, then game on. But no, so it's an unfortunate thing that we live with today, and that is people who feel that they are the greatest thing since sliced bread, or they feel that their kid or their family member or whoever is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and as soon as a coach or whoever pulls them from a game or off a roster or something, it's a huge issue. All right, I'm thinking of one example in particular. It was, I don't remember exactly the details of it, but basically, you had a volunteer coach who had a kid on the team, and this coach, it was in like middle school age, like it wasn't even like high school age, but this coach subbed out a better, like one of their top players for his kid who was also a top player, and the parents of that kid that got subbed out lost their mind. This happened probably 4 years ago. I remember I was at a middle school soccer game because I was talking to one of the coaches, one of the high school coaches who happened to be at this middle school soccer game. My sister had just played a game, I was just there and I witnessed this. And it made me go, whoa. And at the time, it wasn't that big of an issue. It was one of those things that was like, wow, that's a rare case. Now, in 2022, the word rare is no longer used in that sentence. you replace it for common. Because more times than not, either a player or a family member will have an issue with a coach or an assistant coach or an athletic director or whoever it may be, because they feel that their kid is not getting enough playing time, or they feel that their kid is being benched because so and so's parents are that kid's so and so's parent or kid. That's so and so's kid. And unfortunately in small town New Hampshire, it is somewhat of an issue that way in some levels and in some towns. Because the coach is best friends with a parent, now their kid gets automatic starting rights. Thankfully, I haven't seen that issue in a while. Thankfully. But it's a gateway, this opening, hook. If I was writing a news story, this opening hook is a gateway to a bigger issue. And the bigger issue being that all it takes is somebody to not like the way you handle something, and your head is on a stake. And I'm trying to use my words correctly here, because like I said, I get fired up about this topic. It's ridiculous. And it's unfortunately even a situation that I have to deal with. As a broadcaster, if we give attention to one team more than another, we run the risk of somebody watching the game getting upset with us. The great thing about what happens at DPPG is that the person they're messaging is the owner and me. We talked about this last week. But it's an issue. I had a parent, and again, we're not going to use quotes, we're not going to use names, we're not going to use exact messages or quote exact messages. But I had a parent once message us saying, well, clearly you favor one team because you know their roster better than the other. I don't know if you guys know this, but we cover a set amount of schools, right? We cover the Lakes region. All right? Yep. So you're following me here. We cover the Lakes region. How many schools are in the Lakes region? How many schools are in the immediate Belmont area? 5? Winnisquam, Belmont, Guilford, Laconia. There are 4. And then you add on, let's say, Prospect Mountain, Interlakes, even Franklin. So you're at 7. All right. So 7 schools. When we cover 7 schools multiple times across a 30-game schedule, yeah, we're going to know their roster better than the other team, especially if it's another team that we only saw once a season. You guys know me well enough to know that I'm pretty impartial. I try my best. I mean, if you ask whoever, they're going to tell you that there are some times that I am all for that team or all for that school. Then there are other times where it's like, no, you guys suck. And that the whole point of this is an example. All you have to do is do something that 1 or 2 or 3 or multiple people don't like, and all of a sudden now you're public enemy number 1. And that's an issue with society. That is an issue with society in general. I'm not going to get into politics. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, yeah, you want to talk about the last presidential election? No, no, no. We're not doing that. Because, unfortunately, the issue that I am describing and citing and talking about is bigger than the sports scene in New Hampshire, in New England, in the Northeast. All it takes is one person to say that they like one president over another, and bam, the whole house just came apart at the family dinner. But talking about New Hampshire sports, all right, it is a very big issue. A very big issue. Because you're having really good coaches be removed or forced to step down, or even if it's not forced by even if it's not forced by an athletic director or an administrator or whoever, they still feel forced to have to step down. They because of people who don't agree with what they say or don't agree with their style. I read a quote from somebody, or not somebody, it was somebody shared it on social media. And I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember exactly word for word. But basically it said, if you don't like what that volunteer coach is doing, don't coach from the sideline, become a volunteer coach. Because then you will realize that there is a bigger difference from coaching from the sideline, or there is a big difference between coaching from the sideline and coaching on the bench side of the court or the field. I totally butchered that quote, but that's the basics of it. And since I'm driving, I can't pull it up. Or else I would. I'd find it on Facebook or whoever posted it. But that is a legit issue. I don't remember what year it was, but I saw a coach remove himself, not get fired, not get, never asked back, but remove himself from a coaching position out of the goodness of his heart to make sure that an athletic director did not have to deal with a boatload of messages from a certain group of parents asking for him to be removed. First of all, well done by that coach. Well done. That takes a lot, especially after the season he had, which was phenomenal. That takes a lot, though, to step away. But that situation, and again, I'm trying not to use direct quotes because I want to, and I shouldn't, and I won't, but man, is it killing me. But that situation, the parents had an issue with his coaching style. There we go. I might have gave away a little too much. But they had an issue with his coaching style. All right? Think about that. His coaching style. All right. Now, I know some of you out there are like, well, if he was a bad coach, then yeah, that makes sense. That team that he coached made it so far into the playoffs that it was the first time in over 10 years that program made it that far into the playoffs. And again, I'm being very vague. I know. And I also know that there are people out there who are listening right now and are saying, you're not being very vague. We know exactly what you're talking about. And you know what? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I don't even have to be vague and like that. But it's situations like that that really get under my skin because it's like, hang on. You wanted a coach removed because he was potentially, his coaching style didn't line up with your opinion, or because your player went home and was upset with how he coached. But yet they made it that far into the playoffs. Is there no correlation there? You see this all the time. A team that is coached really, really hard, really, really difficult, like coached and held to very high standards, win championships. Or they consistently make it deep into the playoffs. I have a friend who we met at college. His soccer team for 3, 4, 5, 6 years were always in the championship game. Never won, didn't win 7 in a row, though that'd be phenomenal. But they still made it to the championship game. All right? Why is that? I remember asking him, why is that? How? How did your soccer program consistently make it that far? And it was the coach. The coach coached them like soccer players, like human beings. All right? So, what does that say when you have issues where a player goes home and says to their parents or their family or their siblings or their classmates or whoever they are talking to and says, hey, I don't like this coach. Why don't you like this coach? Oh, I don't like the way he talks to me. Well, how does he talk to me? Well, he tells me to run when I did something wrong. Not a real example, kind of boomificated, but you get the point. What does that say about the player? What does that say about the way that player was raised? Listen, all the parents that I've met over the years, they're amazing. They are down to earth. They're humble. And they're incredible. They're great people. I will say, though, that I have met some parents that think their kid is going to be the next Michael Jordan or the next Derek Jeter or Big Papi. And let me tell you something. Those parents, although it's good to be optimistic about your kid. I'll give you that. And you know what? One day when I have kids, I'm going to support them like there's no tomorrow. All right? I will say that right now. My kids are going to be loved and supported like no other kid before, right? But I will also keep it real with them. Because as soon as you do not keep them in check with reality, they become entitled. They get out of hand. And they're the ones who cause issues down the road. All right? My sophomore year of high school. Nope, freshman year of high school. I was friends with an athlete from another school. I don't remember which one. Clearly we were close. But they were one of these players. And that's why we didn't stay friends. They were a starting freshman. Think about that. Starting freshman on a varsity basketball team. Okay? There's only 5 spots. And one of them's taken up by a freshman. Okay. I went to one of his games. He got pulled from the game in the second quarter for a player who was a junior, who was just as good, but had a different type of skill set that the team needed at that very moment. Right? His parents got upset. He got upset because he got pulled from the game for a player that, quote, and I remember this so clearly, for a player that's better friends with the coach because he's older. And I am benched because I'm a freshman. Anybody who knows me knows that as soon as that situation happened, and my personality now is that I don't care what you think. I'm going to tell you how I feel. When I was a freshman in high school, it was a lot worse. I've since been able to kind of put a dial on it. But a freshman in high school, Devin, told the kid to basically shut the F up. And I told him that because he was a freshman on the varsity team. Look, I get you're frustrated. You just got pulled out of a game. I get that. And I will never, ever, ever tell a player to suck it up because they got pulled from a varsity game, because I understand that. But what I will tell you is that if you are a freshman starter on a varsity high school team and you played 2 full quarters and you get pulled for a couple minutes in the third quarter and then get put back in for the fourth quarter, and there are sophomores, juniors, even seniors who are playing less time than you, you do not get upset that you got pulled for a couple minutes. Why? Because now that shows that you're spoiled. Now that shows that you're entitled, and that shows that you think that you're all that in a bag of chips. You're a freshman. Be very grateful. As a freshman, be grateful to be even on the varsity roster. Because let's be real, some coaches don't even look at freshmen in tryouts. Some coaches, as soon as the tryouts start, they say, wait, what grade are you? Freshman. Okay, you're automatically JV. And some coaches do that because they feel that they need a year or so, or half a season, or a full season, however, depending on the coach. They need that time to just get used to high school, because high school basketball is a little different than middle school basketball in a sense. But be grateful that you even made the varsity roster your first year out. But it's people like that, and it's parents like that, who sit there and get mad at the coach because they pulled their kid. It's like, hang on a minute. Why did your kid get pulled from the game? Why? Oh, well, any atypical parent would sit there and say, oh, well, because, the coach is a insert bad word here. Okay. All right. Any logical person watching the game is going to realize that he subbed out your kid for a different player who's better at the job that needs to be done. If your player is good at three-pointers, right? But that team you're playing is blocking all those three-point opportunities, but you have a kid who's really good at elbowing his way into the paint and getting a layup, you're going to swap those two out. You're going to say, hey, so-and-so, I know that you can get us a guaranteed 2 points every time we have the ball. Go take so-and-so who keeps getting shut down by this team at the three-point arc. Right? Coaches are smart. Although coaches may not handle themselves the best way sometimes, I've seen my fair share of coaches who have lost their tempers and things like that. Everything a coach does is calculated. Everything a coach does is thought out. Everything a coach does, for the most part, is done with the team's intentions, best intentions in mind. Sorry, it's starting to rain here on the highway. Just making sure we're not on any freezing type of rain. Thankfully, it's 40 and this is rain. But that falls back to so many things other than the coach. And, this is just an example, the whole coach idea aspect of it. I've seen so many times where, a team manager gets removed. Although those are a little bit different. Because usually team managers are students. So there's probably some outside reason. But at the end of the day, this all goes back to people being entitled and feeling like they're the best. Nothing makes me more happy than when I get into a conversation with somebody and somebody thinks that they know better than me. And this is the part that makes me really happy, when I then prove them wrong. That's the best feeling. Like, legitimately. Because that feeling tells me, that that person's just arrogant or ignorant. Maybe a little bit of both. That's just something that just irritates me. And it just makes me frustrated. It makes me so frustrated. And it's unfortunate because some people you can just pick off. Whether it be the way they talk, the way they walk, the way they handle themselves. It's all it takes is one of those things to come forward, and you can just kind of pick it off. I went to school with a kid who was so sure that he was gonna make it. I'm gonna go to college. I'm gonna go to a D1 school. And I'm going to play whatever he was going to play. And he's going to make it to the little leagues, the minor leagues, I should say. or whatever league it was, and then bam, pro all-star. That person doesn't even. He made it to the D1 school. Doesn't start. And this next thing I'm going to say is mean, but pretty sure you can find him starting in the barstool or the bar tab on Saturday nights. Again, I acknowledge that that's mean, but that person was horrible to me in school. So, karma. It's a real jerk. But, you know, that, in my opinion, may be a prime example. Because I do have a heart enough to feel bad for him. Because of just the fact that I know his parents. I know who they are. They were the ones who drove that into his head, that he was going to make it. You know, that he was going to be it. And I feel bad for him. Because he just... I don't know. I almost feel like had he not had that drilled into his head, he would have been a little bit more successful at other stuff. Instead, he's most likely going to work a 9 to 5, and that's it. But again, that is I brought that whole part up, that whole thing about that one person. And I know I said I wasn't going to use any direct examples, and I realize I lied. But thankfully, I haven't used any names. And I will say that all these examples that I have used have been from whether college or another state that I've seen, except for that one example with the kid I went to school with. But I don't have any direct examples of anybody close to home, because I'm not that much of a jerk. But I brought up that one example because that is what happens 9 times out of 10. You know, that freshman starter on the basketball team who threw a hissy fit because he got thrown out of the game as a freshman or got removed from the game as a freshman. I know that he has a bar tab. And again, I feel bad. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for all of those people out there. Because I do have a heart, and I'm not going to sit here and tear people apart and be like, ah ha ha, I win, you lose. No. Because we all have our own stuff we're going through. You know, and I feel bad for them. Partially because of their situation, but partially because they had people in their lives who filled their head with hot air. And again, I want to stress this. I have no issue with parents supporting their kids. I have no issue with that. But you need, as a parent, as a grandparent, as an uncle, an aunt, as a family member, whoever you are to these athletes, you need to also make sure that they know that life is not all that fair. and that not everything in life is going to be handed to them. You know, it is extremely unfortunate when you see that so-and-so's no longer playing for so-and-so on this team. Why? Because the coach is a jerk. Okay, the coach might be a little rough around the edges. I'll give you that. But, again, everything that they say is done with the best intentions for their team in mind. You know, at the end of the day, I realize I'm putting a lot of spaces in. I'm just trying to think through my statements here. You know, at the end of the day, the chances of you going to become a pro, they are there. The chances are there. I will say that. But you know, you're gonna go play for the Red Sox. Okay, they only have 30 people, or however many people. It's a small number compared to the country's population. You know, I'll say this. I wanted, since I was 12 years old, to be a NASCAR on Fox broadcast announcer. Okay? I know, there are some people out there right now going, hee NASCAR, circles. But, like, let's think about this for a second. If you tune into any game broadcast, right? How many announcers are there? 2? 3? How many sideline reporters or pit road reporters are there? 2? 3? All right, so let's say that's 6. How many people in the studio? 3, 4? All right, let's say that's 10 people. All right? 10 people announcing one baseball game. 10 people announcing or covering one NASCAR race. All right, so that's 10 people out of how many people in the country? Out of how many people in that college class that's in a broadcasting 101? Let's think about that. You are a kid in a broadcasting class, 30 kids. All right, guess what? 10 of us are going to make it. Point is in every field you go into, unless it's a mass employment type field, like we always need doctors. You know, we always need teachers. We always need police officers and firefighters. You know, fields like that, you're going to have a good chance. But if you're going into the pro sports world, or you're going into an announcing world, or a field that has limited spaces, there's a good chance you're not going to make it. You know, I'm 22 years old. I've had that dream of being a NASCAR and Fox announcer for 10 years. I still would love to one day call a NASCAR race from a TV booth. You know, we just watched the Daytona 500. My idol Mike Joy in his 21st season for NASCAR on Fox, calling the Daytona 500. I would love to be him. Is it going to happen? Maybe. But you know what? In the meantime, I'm going to keep grinding. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing with DPPG, because I realize that there is a chance that that's not going to happen. I realize that there is a chance that I may not make that big time. And unfortunately, there are some people out there who don't realize that. And some people out there who may not realize it because they have been pushed. And I don't want to say brainwashed because that sounds a little harsh. But they have people in their lives who are going to sit there and say, no, you are the greatest. You deserve this. You know, my parents say the same thing. My parents say that one day I'm going to make it in the big time. But they will also be the first people to say that that's one day. You live 100 years. Or however many. You know, that's... I don't know how... that's a lot of days, you know, to live. So one day you're going to make it. But what are you going to do in the meantime? That's what my parents say. And yeah, there were some days when I was a high school kid and I was saying, I'm not going to go flip burgers at McDonald's, Dad. I'm going to make my own path, and I'm going to be my own boss, and I'm going to do this. And there are some days that they would sit there and say, that's not going to work. And some days they were right. And some days they weren't. But the point is that, you know, every parent has the right to be supportive of their kid. I'm not going to sit there and say that they don't. But there is also a certain level of support that you need to give, but also tough love. You know, these kids, there are some basketball players, some soccer players, some hockey players, some football players, track and field stars. It doesn't matter what sport, but all they do is they work their tail off. Those are the people who are going to go places right now in the high school sports world. Those are the people who are going to be the starters. Those are the people that are going to get recruited by D1 schools. And if they continue to work their tail off, those are the people that are going to make it somewhere. It's the people who will sit there and they'll practice the 2 or 3 hours a night with the coach, and then they'll go home and do homework and eat dinner and talk to their parents about whatever. And then all of a sudden, they go to bed, they wake up, they go to school, and they do another 2 or 3 hours. You know, it's grinding. Yes, it is. But the people who just put in enough but expect to be LeBron James are the people who are not going to go very far. All right. We're at 48 minutes. I'm going to back off of this topic because I realize I have been tough. And I realize that I have been very, very out there. And again, I want to say this. I support all athletes. I support all parents. I understand that athlete who might be having being upset that he got pulled off the bench might have stuff happening at home that none of us know about. Might have stuff going on in their personal life that none of us know about. And for all we know, that student athlete getting pulled off the bench, getting upset that he got pulled off the bench, it's because he, for those 32 minutes in that basketball game, that's his time to get away from everything. And as soon as he got pulled out of it, he can no longer be away. You know, I completely understand that. What I don't like is when a parent or a player or whoever creates whatever. It creates a petition or goes around and badmouths the coach or whatever because they didn't get enough playing time or they didn't like how the coach talked to them or they didn't like this or they didn't like that or whatever the case may be. That's when I don't like it, because now you're just acting spoiled. Unless you have a legit reason. Obviously, if there's a coach out there that does something extremely wrong, extremely bad, whatever it may be, then yes, go. And I support you in that. But if you're going to get upset with a coach because he didn't start your player, or he didn't play your player enough, or he subbed your player out for another player who you don't feel is good enough, then that's on you. That's not the coach. Too many good coaches are lost from coaching positions because of the community in which they coach in. Think about that. Think about that. It is an unfortunate fact that too many coaches are lost from coaching positions because of the community in which they coach in. And I hate that we live in a world that's even a thing. That shouldn't be a thing. Well, we got about 8 minutes left. And I'm doing 80 and a 65 past a group of state troopers. All right, they're not moving. We're fine. They're talking about donuts. All right, no, they're not. Probably talking about legit law enforcement things. But, look, last 8 minutes, let's talk about this. So, winter sports winding down. Basketball playoffs are happening. Semifinals tonight for Division 3. Finals on Saturday for Division 3. Hockey. Woo! We got a game on Wednesday. And then a game on Saturday. And then we take a week off for winter break. And then we rock and roll into playoffs for hockey, which will about be 2 weeks. Maybe a week, actually. It will be Wednesday, the 2nd of March, will be a play-in game, I believe. If I understood correctly, that should be a play-in game. And then Saturday the 5th, Saturday the 5th is the quarterfinals. Wednesday the 9th is semifinals. And then Saturday the 12th is your championship Saturday. Woo! At the SNHU Arena. So, and then that's it. You hit the 12th of March, and then bam, season over. I don't know if you guys can hear the rain, but it is like pouring. This is fun. But yeah, we reached the 12th of March, and our winter sports season is done. It is over. Before anybody asks, I do not know when spring sports starts. I will be the first to admit that I have not looked at the schedule yet. Any schedule yet. But we got a lot of things planned for the spring, and I can tell you that the month or two, month and a half in between seasons, it's going to be busy for me. Busy for us, DPPG, and during the weekly podcast that we are going to start to do, I will give you updates. I'll let you know what we worked on that week, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. This week, we actually started our spring sports prep. How? Because we're using the wire, the zipline camera, at Guilford High School for Winter Carnival this week. And every time I pull that device out of the box to use, I'm learning so much. Every time. Every time. And I will admit, it's frustrating me just as much because I'll figure something out and I'll be like, yeah, we're good. And then the next day I'll set it up and it's not the way I thought it was yesterday. And I go, I don't understand what I did wrong. But that's the way it is with any new equipment that we get. So with that being said, we've now started using that wire cam indoors, which I know in a gym is going to be different than if on a baseball field or on a track facility or whatever. But the basics and the fundamentals are there. And it teaches us a lot to know, all right, we put this up for about 100 feet. What does that mean? Well, the middle of this wire is a foot lower. Okay, so we lose about a foot in the center per 100 feet. All right, good to know. So that means we're going to drop 5 feet from the highest point on a 500-foot run. All right, good to know. So things like that. Things like that we're just learning. And we're super excited to be using it, honestly. And I want to say public shout out to Viral Light, the company who created the wire cam. They are great. They've been awesome. They've been great to work with, and I think we're in the process of becoming an ambassador for them. So that means, if I understand correctly, that you guys can use a promo code that we give you, and you get X amount off of the device or anything you need to buy with them. So we'll be promoting that, and we'll be showcasing that and all of its glory. And yeah, so that is our biggest project for spring sports. That, and of course, finding a budget and getting money and all the boring business behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, so that's our plan. That is our plan. So here's what we're gonna do. We got 3 minutes left. Or 2 minutes or so left. I'm gonna end this sooner than an hour. But thanks for listening. I realize that we said a lot of borderline, not mean or risky, but just very blunt stuff. And again, I cannot stress this enough. We support supportive parents. It's just when your support gets too evolved to the point where now your kid thinks he's LeBron James playing D3 basketball in New Hampshire. And he's not. That's when it gets a little much. When you become a fanatic instead of a fan, that's an issue. And fanatic being, of course, somebody who is crazy. It's one thing to be a fanatic about a sport, in a healthy, good way. It's another thing to be a fanatic and be crazy. I don't want to say psycho because that's, I think, a little too far, but be crazy. I mean, yikes. Those coaches are hired for a reason. Those athletic directors are hired for a reason. These people in your athlete's world are there for a reason. Anyways. Thank you all for listening to the last hour or so. Appreciate it. Until we see each other for the next broadcast or next podcast of DP Uncensored. Hope you have a great night, everybody. Still got an hour to go here in Vermont. Woohoo! We just crossed into Vermont. But anyways, talk to you all soon. Peace!